First and foremost, I want to thank all of the candidates for being with us tonight. Without them, this is just me standing in front of a bunch of people laughing. So thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. I also wanted to say a huge thank you to Danielle Laguna, who is the coordinator for this facility. She set up every single one of the chairs. She set up all the tables. She saved my butt, providing water and cups for all of the candidates. So a huge thank you to her and to And before we go any further, I would appreciate it if everybody could stand, and we'll do our traditional Pledge of Allegiance with you and Robbie.
Where's the flag?
Yeah, where's the flag? Right there.
Oh, there it is. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One more small piece of administrative for the May Valley members. Our next meeting is going to be the first Thursday in December, and that will be our nomination meeting for officers. So if you have any nominations for officers, please email myself or one of the other board members. Speaking of the officers, we're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Michael Jennings. I'm the president for the May Valley Neighborhood Council. I am the lead systems engineer in high performance computing at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, as well as the University of California, Berkeley. Our new vice president is right there.
Well, my name is Missy Peoples, and it wasn't announced that I'm the new vice president, so that's really news and only because and Eleanor Lloyd, after something like 25 years, is leading us. So and Eleanor is here. For Eleanor.
And our treasurer, Joan Dries.
Hello, I'm the treasurer of May Valley, and I've been doing it for too many years, so I'm retiring after this year. So, but it's been fun while I've been here, and I'm glad you all came out today. And if anyone wants to write questions, I have index cards and pencils.
Thank you, Joe. We have generated a list of questions based on previous topics of community interest. If you have a question that you would like to ask the candidates, if we have time at the end, we will be asking questions that were contributed by the audience. So please see Joan, grab an index card, write down your question, she'll be gathering. Now, as you can see, the candidates are not arranged in alphabetical order. I wanted to be clear on how this was done. All of the names were randomly sorted by computer before tonight's meeting. So they've been placed in the order in which they will be speaking. Start with opening statements from left to right, or audience left to audience right. Then we'll go through the questions, and then closing statements will be done from audience right to audience left in reverse order. So without further ado, let's go ahead and have our opening statements from each candidate.
Excuse me, Michael. Michael will tell us how much time we're going to have for each statement or question.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Each statement or question response is going to be limited to 1 minute. We have 15 seconds left. Missy will hold up a red sign.
So we'll do a demo. We have 15 minutes left. I will just hold up the red sign. 15 seconds left.
I
Hold up the red sign.
know it's not much time, but there's a lot of candidates here. We have 15 give everybody a chance to answer.
Yeah.
So,
And then when I start flailing it, your time is up, and you have like 1 second to stop, or our Larry has been promoted to sound man tonight to cut off the volume.
Okay. Business.
all right. Opening statements.
Well, 1 minute is a very short period of time for us politicians. I'm Nat Bates. I'm Nat Bates, that's the mayor, she always cut me off. I'm Nat Bates, and I'm no stranger to many of you. I lived up on Silverville, Level 1 for about 12, 14 years. My son is there now. But I've been your city council member for 35 years, and twice I've been your mayor. I'm running for mayor because it's time that we restore some dignity, respectability, and control at the city council level. We need to balance our budget. We're a $6.8 million deficit, and anyone that has a household, company, you know you cannot function and run a city, a company, or your household without a balanced budget. So we've got some serious problems, and I'm experienced, 35 years, more time than my competitors, and I think I'm the person for the job. So thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing more other questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Come on, welcome. All right. My name is Uche Wahemo. I'm running for mayor of Richmond, and again with the accent. And I've made some jokes that you have to get used to it because your next mayor will be the mayor with accent, right? But we have some serious issues in Richmond here. I think each one of you are aware of that. It's an issue that requires some leadership. 3 of us agree that we need new leadership. The question is, who's that person that we need to take this community moving forward in the next decade or so? I think when you all pay attention here, the two folks I'm running against here, they've all had their chance for them to lead this community. In my opinion, most people's opinion, they have failed to lead. It's about time we bring new change to Richmond. It's about time we usher in a new leadership and move this community forward. Thank you.
I'm Tom Butt, candidate for mayor. Both of my opponents are going to tell you that Richmond is broken, and they're going to fix it because it has a lot of problems. I'm here to tell you that Richmond is not broken. Richmond is doing very well, thank you. Richmond is doing better than it has in the last 70 years. We don't have so many problems, we got opportunities. We need to keep this trend going. Richmond is cleaner, it's greener, it's safer, it's quieter, it's better than it's ever been before. And as mayor, I'm going to lead the charge to continue that trend and make Richmond even better. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more with Councilmember Budd. By any measure, Richmond is better now than it has been for years. Over the past 10 years, 8 years as mayor, it's been my privilege to be a part of Richmond's transformation, and we have made so much progress. Our crime is dramatically down. Homicides are the lowest number in 33 years. We've renovated our parks. We've installed more solar per person in the entire Bay Area. We've compelled Chevron to pay more in taxes, and now we have to make sure they build the cleanest, safest refinery that they possibly can and that we need them to build. We have seen our city rise from its history of scarcity and despair. We need to keep moving in this direction, have stronger neighborhoods, fix our streets, help our homeowners to avoid foreclosure. We need to do this together. As we have come this far, we have so much at stake. We have to keep moving forward in spite of the multi-million-dollar campaign that Chevron is waging against us.
My name is Donna Powers, and I'm glad to be here tonight. I was on the city council from 92 to 2000, so I think some of you may remember me. During those 8 years, I was sometimes on the finance committee. We kind of rotated, but I did have a reputation for really questioning how expenditures were made in the city. And I don't think people now at the council level are paying close enough attention to the money that goes out and the lack of money that's coming in. I think that we really need to work on our roads and also desperately need to continue the progress with the Richmond Police Department. I know that you have issues out here. You have a lot of robberies, or not robberies, but burglaries in your home, car theft, that kind of thing. And I think we need to have more officers out in this area.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, May Valley. Michael Beckles. Richmond is doing well. We're doing so much better. I work with children at Children's Mental Health Services at McDonald Avenue in Richmond. I've been doing that for 14 years. And there's one message that has been consistent with it. This is without even provocation. My clients, my families, my grandparents come and say, Javanka, the city really is looking good. And I said, thank you very much. We need to continue that direction. And so that's what I'm asking for your support, because we have to continue in this good direction that we're going in. There is fairness now with regard to people who are struggling. We're talking about myself working hard and fighting for working class people, for the poor, for disadvantaged individuals. We're doing a lot to bring about some equity in the city, and it's wonderful. We're standing up to Chevron. We're making it easier for those who are coming back from incarceration to be able to get employment and not go back to prison. So if anyone says, we need to go in a different direction, ask yourself, what direction is that? We've been there before and it was awful. Let's keep moving it forward. Thank you very much.
Good evening, May Valley. Good to see all of you. My name is Albert Martinez. I go by Al Martinez. I'm proudly before you. I want to be certainly your next elected council member for the city of Richmond. I come to you with extensive leadership capabilities as a police officer right here in Richmond that patrolled these same streets over 30 years ago. As a recently retired postmaster of Richmond, your postmaster, 12 years here in Richmond. I'm a homeowner right in this area for over 21 years. Been married. I have one son, married 30 years. I'm very proud to continue to be a servant for the community, for the family, the businesses, and each and every one of you. I look forward for your support and certainly for your vote and our report. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Charles Ramsden. I wanted to just tell you how appreciative I am that all of you come out tonight to hear us. I think it's good that we have an opportunity to speak to you. I've served the last 21 years as your elected school board member and have worked really hard in this community, in this area. We've been seeing dramatic improvements over at De Anza. Now we have people wanting to get into school. We've done California Distinguished School at Olinda. We've also worked very hard about to rebuild Valley View coming up. That's going to be starting next year, brand new school there. So I've worked really hard with these constituents, and I want to continue to do that. I think there are a lot of good things going on in Richmond, and I've been here my entire life, and I want to continue to build on those successes and the things that have been accomplished. But one thing that's really, really struggling right now is the budget. And as you heard somebody say, a $6.8 million deficit is something that needs to be resolved. And I did that as a school board member by getting us out of bankruptcy 7 years early when we had to deal with that. So I look forward to answering your question tonight. So thank you for having me.
Hi, my name is Eduardo Martinez, and I'm running for the 4-year Richmond City Council seat. I taught at Downer Elementary, and the last 4 years I taught at Sheldon just down on May. So this is a fantastic community. I know a lot of the kids here, and a lot of them have grown up to be fantastic adults. So I also believe that Richmond is moving forward in a positive way, and I want to help continue moving Richmond forward. As a planning commission member, I've made a lot of decisions that has moved Richmond forward, and I'm also on the Point Mulati Advisory Committee, and on the Sierra board. So there are lots of things that we can continue to do, and hopefully I can continue to do that as a city council member.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Anthony Creer, and I'm running for your 2-year seat on the City Council. I'm a long-time Richmond resident, 49 years. I've been married 25 years in June. I have 4 children. One graduated San Jose State. My daughter will graduate Fresno State next year. My other son, he goes to Berkeley. My daughter's in 11th grade. I've seen Richmond change, and I've seen it at its worst point. Right now, we are moving forward. It's time for us to really move forward with a new council and a new approach to what's going on. Our city has suffered. Our downtown is ravished and nobody's paying attention to it. And that's my golden plan, is to go back to our downtown, rebuild it so that we can have a robust business community in all angles of the city, where we won't have to beg Chevron for extra money, for extra permits and things like that. So look for me on this ballot ticket. My name is Anthony Creer, and I thank you, Bay Valley.
Good evening, Bay Valley. Thank you for having us. My name is Henry Washington. I'm running for a 4-year term. I used to live in this neighborhood. I owned a condo over on Joan Vista, so to my surprise, I couldn't find this place. Sorry about that. I'm a native of Richmond. My grandfather was the first African-American police in the city of Richmond, 1941. Maltolani served on the city council for 16 years, and I'm trying to follow in the family footsteps. I would like to see a higher level of professionalism and decorum from our city leaders, especially our city council. I've got great ideas. I'm young. I'm a bridge between peoples. I think that's my greatest gift as a collaborator. And I've got a 4-pronged agenda that I'll tell you more about later. Thank you for having us.
I'm Jim Rogers, incumbent council member running for re-election. It's wonderful to be back in El Sabani. Please accept my thanks for coming out to see us tonight. We have a lot of success in Richmond. Homicides down by 2/3. Most other crimes down about 20%. The pothole situation, as bad as it is about 33% improved compared to a few years ago. And I have been part of that progress, part of making Richmond better. And as we've done that, I know people out in El Sabani also feel left out, no one's listening. Well, I have been listening. Going back years and years ago, I was part of the wing of the council voted against the inappropriate El Sabani developments. We usually lost, but I voted against them anyway. A couple of years ago, I led the fight on saving our schools, and one of the schools saved was Linda, which was mentioned earlier, has now won awards. So I'll be happy to talk more about that later, and thanks again for coming.
Good evening, Bay Valley. My name is Damien King. I am a lifelong Richmond resident, and I believe our city is in a healthy transition. And certainly our community deserves leadership that embraces and appreciates the commonality of humanity, culturally competent public safety policy, and the well-diverse business community. I believe that if we get this thing right, if we get the right people on council, we can ensure that every resident that desires to call Richmond home will see themselves as a stakeholder. A stakeholder mindset makes all the difference. When you have individuals who believe that they are stakeholders, they will make investments. That's the difference between a stakeholder and someone who just lives in the neighborhood. Is the individual who will pick up his trash in his yard. It's the individual who will help out another neighbor. It's the individual who understands a sense of community. And that's what I want to bring to the city council. I think that you've all seen on the news what our city council can be, a Jerry Springer show, a Maury Povich show. What I intend to bring to the table is pragmatism. Someone who can weigh information and make sound decisions without emotion and politicizing every issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Courtney Bouze, and Bay Valley, thank you. This is the biggest turnout we've ever had any candidates tonight, and you guys owe yourself applause for that. I want to tell you about what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I've been doing, fighting for you. I represent you, the seniors, and what's happening at City Hall, transparency. I have some real issues. I was Tom Butspring for 19 years, and
all of a sudden he's bad mouthing me and treating me like a stepchild, that's okay. I'm going to still continue to fight for you. I am not supporting Measure U. You do not need another tax. You do not need a tax that does not have a sunset so they can fix the budget that they've overspent. I am the one who brought that. I'm the one who brought that doctor's hospital. Think about it. The mayor, Tom, and all them took it away, but I brought it back. We're going to keep Doctor's Hospital open. Watch Corky. I will do what I've always done. Fight for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, candidates. We'll now get to our first question. Let me grab the microphone real quick. To what do you attribute the current situation at Doctors Medical Center, and in what ways do you feel the City of Richmond can and should be helping? What specific actions do you intend to take, if any, once elected?
Well, first of all, it's mismanagement, a host of problems. We passed a bond that we thought was going to rectify some of the problems, but it didn't occur. In terms of Richmond's involvement, you got to understand, we're a municipal government. We're not a hospital. We're not a transit district. Only thing we can do in my position is to give collaborative support if we can find money. We have problems ourselves. We have a 6.8 million, and when this next budget come up and the salaries increase next year, you're looking at a double deficit. So we don't have money, but fortunately, Chevron was, we were able to get some money from Chevron, and we're committed to give $5 million for 3 years. And if that doesn't do the job, I don't know what will. But more important, it is a county responsibility for help, not the city of Richmond.
The hospital issue is partly what Nat said. It's a leadership problem. I've attended every meeting that involved a hospital for the past 1 year. We have one, leadership issue, and then two, in terms of the healthcare system overall, and that they're struggling with that, they're not ready for that. Now, moving forward, there's some serious issues. If you look at where healthcare has been going for the past decade, you don't have a standalone hospital anymore. Most hospitals manage. Same thing happened with Children's Hospital in Oakland. They manage with UCSF. That's how you build a sustainable hospital. You can't continue to do the same business as usual. It doesn't work in the same way. The global market changes, you change with it. That's why they're struggling. They continue to keep it as a standalone hospital. It will not succeed in that way.
Well, how do you give a 1 hour answer in 1 minute? The short answer is, a couple of nights ago, the City Council unanimously adopted a plan to save Doctors Hospital. It's got a lot of moving parts, and it's got a lot of uncertainty in it, but it is a plan. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a village to do it. Richmond cannot do it by itself. You know, as far as the money the city's putting into it, a total of $15 million. That money would not have been there had not Jim Rogers and J.L. Myrick and myself negotiated day after day after day with Chevron right up to the last day and gotten a total of $90 million from it. And not all of that $90 million is available for this. But we did it, and now the money has been preliminarily allocated, and, you know, let's hope it works.
So many of us have been pushing for the saving of Doctors Hospital as a full-service hospital for a long time now. This California Nurses Association has really led that charge, and some of us have been right there with them. The city staff, in the direction of the council, came up with a plan, and that plan does have some various parties involved, including the $15 million from the Chevron benefits agreement, as well as county input funds, as well as other hospitals putting in funds, as well as other cities coming together. Just this morning, I was
County Mayors meeting, and we talked about this among all the West County mayors, and they're very interested in this. So what we have to do is continue to push forward, make sure the county, all the Board of Supervisors are willing to pay their share, which means they have to forgive some debt that Doctors Hospital has to them, and continue to put pressure on other hospitals. This is a necessity. A hospital is important as schools, roads, libraries. We have to have a full-service hospital, and I've been working hard, and we're going to continue to work hard to get it.
Okay, my name is Donna Powers, and I take a totally different view of this hospital situation. Contra Costa County really should be stepping up. I know that the county has always wanted to have a place in West County, but they don't have money for bricks and mortar. They don't have money to build a hospital. They have money to take care of patients and run programs. So what I am suggesting, that $15 million, if you have an agreement between the City of Richmond, Contra Costa County Health, and Chevron, the money that allegedly we're going to get, that would go into bricks and mortar, a building plan that the county could put a small, if you will, satellite facility in West County here. They have the money to run programs, and they have a site in San Pablo where it could be used. About 85% of the people that go to any emergency room for visits are there for emergency care, breaking a leg, the kid gets cut, whatever. It's the other 15% that you want to get them stabilized and then get them to another hospital. I have a lot to say on this, but we don't have enough time.
So the problem at Doctors is there are several reasons why it's in the is having the problems that it's having right now. And one of those reasons is that it's not classified. It doesn't have the classification to be able to get Medi-Cal and Medicare reimbursement. So that's one of the problems. So that can be taken care of easily at the state level. And we really have to put pressure on our state government, on our county government to change that, to acquire the hospital and make it be a part of the Contra Costa healthcare system. I believe it can be done, but it's going to take a lot of mobilization, which I will continue to do. I will continue to work with the nurses, the California Nurses Association, who are working tirelessly to make sure that they can continue to take care of our families, our friends, and our neighbors. Right now, it's going to take leadership will. And I believe that the nurses and many community organizations are right now mobilizing to go to the county supervisors, and I encourage you to do that as well.
Thank you. It's a wonderful question. But foremost, I've been hearing a lot of rhetoric. What we're going to do, what I have done. It's what are you doing? I think we need to step forward. I think the Doctors Medical Center is a great idea. It should never close. But we should have stepped up and put forth that effort a long time ago. Richmond is the largest city in Contra Costa. We should have been the implementers of where to go. We have the money. We should have called moves. We should have been the one that put forth the effort. Yes, as the other candidates had mentioned, we need partners, and there should be the one because it is going to be a county hospital. So Pinole, El Cerrito, all the neighboring cities around Richmond need to step up. Not if you will step up. No, you need to step up. We're not going to close the doors on those folks. So they need to step up with their money, put their money where their mouth is, but we should lead the way. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a very complicated issue. I've actually been through it with the schools out in this community working with the city. We partnered and kept the schools open at no net cost to the city because we were able then to rebuild the swimming pool that is going to be utilized by the city residents. But really at the crux and heart of it is how we engage with the state. Jerry Brown's already given $3 million to keep it open, so obviously it's on their mind. They just don't give money away to any local city, in any local community. We're working in collaboration with the county, with the nurses, with the other medical providers, and with other hospitals. We can come up with a solution to try to solve this problem. So I applaud the City Council for taking the necessary step to continue the conversation. because we need to have a full-service healthcare clinic in our community, and not having that would be catastrophic. And so I think we need to continue to have the conversations about how we keep that open.
The current situation at Doctors Medical Center is a systematic problem, and it can only be solved with the National Single Payers Health Care Program. A recent study found that over 500 hospitals nationwide are running at a $15 million deficit. So until single payers can be implemented, the hospitals impacted by a possible absence of DMC, the industries that would depend on DMC during an emergency, the counties and cities that benefit from DMC as a full-service hospital should cover the costs of keeping DMC open until it becomes a part of the county hospital system, and a utility tax levied on the refineries in the unincorporated county provides the necessary funding for the entire county hospital system. We must also change the compensation formula used by the state and federal government for giving care to Medicare and Medicaid.
Well, thank you all. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is J.L. Myrick. I want to apologize for being a little late. There was a West County Democratic Club event for the candidates endorsed by the Democratic Party, and I was over there. So the Doctors Medical Center issue is a very, very challenging problem, and I think the proposal, the mayor outlined it earlier, that the city manager, Bill Lindsay, brought forward and that we voted on this past Tuesday, it really shows how complicated it is. There's a lot of moving parts that have to come together. You know, there's no magic wand that can be waved here to solve the problem. But the city is stepping up to do our part. We're working with Chevron to try to get them to do their part. But there's a whole lot of other players that have to come together in order to save Doctors Medical Center the way we want to save, which is as a full-service acute care facility. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen, and everybody's going to have to play a role in that.
With Doctors Hospital again. Doctors Medical Center is a great hospital, it's a great facility. It will be brought back at some point. It will be put back in service. But Richmond was the beginning of Kaiser's hospital. It was the beginning, the shipyard and Kaiser began there. And we lacked vision for seeing that opportunity again. We've let our Richmond hospital die and go away. It's being rented out and used for other purposes. Our fire stations haven't been rebuilt. The city council and the government here in Richmond has lacked the vision to see these problems head on coming at you, and like a locomotive in a tunnel. So we have to not only save doctors, but we got to look for opportunities with the county. We have a county hospital that's there on 37th Street in McDonald. And we just need to get with the county, have them rebuild it, and be done with it, and then move forward to building another hospital and so on. Thank you very much. That's my opinion.
I think the real problem is the city government that is more reactionary than proactive. And, thank you, ma'am. And the administrators at Doctors Medical Center wait until the last minute. What that caused is a panic. And everybody saw it as pessimistic. And they made the fiscal situation more dire than it actually is. We asked Governor Brown for $6 million. He's given $3 million. It's operating right now, the hospital there is at about $18 million per year in the red. But there's some ways to deal with this. We have a brand new county facility, and we have Kaiser. Each one of these three entities, DMC, Kaiser, and the new county facility, have areas of expertise that they do better. For instance, DMC handles more of the third-rate emergencies, and I think we have to spread it out. And lastly, we need to think about the long term, which is their plans, DMC, for a 100-bed hospital.
I think we're all going to agree up here, probably pretty much everybody in the room, is want to save DMC. The question is, you got to vote for people who have a record of being able to deal with complicated financial, political, and legal problems and make it work. And I have that record. Tom Budd earlier mentioned about the $90 million deal that we negotiated with Chevron. By way of comparison, the ConocoPhillips refinery, they got about $1 We did it at no net cost, working with Charles Ramsey. I'm the one that brought that to the council. We figured out the finances. We made it work. Big problem with the hospital is that the county built the county hospital back in the mid-90s. I opposed that when I ran for supervisor. I won that election. I voted against it. They passed it anyway. So you need somebody who's not just giving you the rah-rah, who's not going to claim it's all easy. It's not easy. This is a Hail Mary operation. This is very difficult. And if we're going to make it work, we need people with a history of making difficult projects work.
Damien King. My father, Lennox King, was a Vietnam vet, and he served 2 tours, and he used to tell me all the time that you can't put Band-Aids on bullet wounds. And so I think that since 2005, we've been having issues with Doctors Medical Hospital, and I think that and part of it has to do with leadership and representation. I think that critical issues in communities like Richmond, all too often, the people find out about it way too late. I think it takes organization and mobilization of the people to force the will of county and local governments to do the right thing. And I think that that's what leadership has to do. Not only should we be your representatives, we should also be charged with the responsibility of informing you. Not at the midnight hour, not when it's almost too late to do anything about this. And I know this is a very emotional issue, but sometimes we might have to ask the people, what are you willing to sacrifice? Now, that's a very complicated thing. That's a very, one of those issues where you might say, hey, you know, I don't know if I want to sacrifice new taxes or whatever the case may be, but it may come down to that, and I think that we have to be honest and serious about it, and not just emotionalized.
Well, once again, as you know, Corky Bouzet, Mr. Transparency, I'm going to use this all the time. Damien, let me just say something to you. When it comes to my seniors, there is no compromise. We need a hospital, we get them in there and get their hearts taken care of. Jim Rogers, Tom Budd. Let's talk about Jim Rogers and Tom Budd and J.L. Myrick. Jim Rogers cared more about electric cars, read it, and Tom Budd cared more about solar, going to marine energy, and inexperience because of J.L., who could have just said, I'm not going to vote unless you put Doctors Hospital in the equation. It died 3 months ago. I brought it back. Look at the City Council agenda, look at who brought it. Corky Bouzet brought it back, and that's why they're talking about it now. Let's just keep transparency out there, let's keep the fact. I am not going to back up when it comes to my community. I do this job because I love it, not because I'm trying to get a big ego or get paid. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. For our next question, we're going to start here and go that way. The May Valley area is currently part of the Richmond Police Department's Beat 9. This area includes not only May Valley, but also the Hilltop Mall area. Many of our members and residents feel strongly that the current allocation of 1 patrol officer for such a large area is woefully inadequate and is leading to an increase in mischief, vandalism, auto theft, and even home burglaries in our community. Do you agree or disagree with this assessment? And what will you do to keep May Valley residents and businesses safe?
That's a very good question, and let me say it's something that I want to learn a little more about. And of course I'm going to agree with the assessment because you're going to know the issues in your neighborhood than anybody up here is going to know the issues in your neighborhood. What I will say in terms of making sure the right assessment of police officers are around, it really comes down to making sure that we are handling the situation with the budget correctly. And there's a lot of different issues that are going to be challenging this coming year with the budget. And there's multiple pieces of that as well. But right now we've got a very smart city manager and a very smart city finance director. And what we will be looking at in the coming year is how do we make it so that we're able to measure you the best way for protecting our streets, but also not having to make dramatic cuts, and how do we make sure that growth happens in the city. So, sorry, that's not a lot of time.
Well, page 4.
Page 4?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Page 4. I do agree that Beat 9 is an enormous area. And the various beats need to be reevaluated through community meetings with the chief of police so that he has a better understanding of the needs of the community and the community has a better understanding of his constraints. Generally, police do not prevent crime, they react to crime. Most of the crimes are property crimes, meaning that the issue is lacking, most of the times are property crimes, meaning that there is a lack of resources. And in-depth investment in youth activities would cut down the amount of mischief and vandalism. So we need to send more money into youth.
Whoever asked this question and prepared it hit a home run, because this is the core and essence of what we see as being problematic in the city. We should have staffed 205 police officers. We have 166. And part of the challenge is how we address those situation issues. So people can talk about all the Herculean efforts, but the reality is you're feeling the impact right here. We have more police officers at De Anza High School in our budget than you have for the whole area. And that's a problem. I provide staff 2 police officers for 1,300 kids, but for over 50,000 people, we have 1 beat. That's a problem, and I'm glad you're seeing it, and that needs to be corrected. And that's what I'm wanting to address. Now, they said the $6.8 million deficit is a problem. And if Measure U doesn't pass, that's an additional problem. And then you're not hearing them say, well, what are we going to do to correct that problem? And so I think you need somebody with experience and understanding to be able to do that, because I think that's the key core issue that we're all faced with in this community. It's only going to get worse.
First and foremost, I'm one of the strongest proponents for public safety here, specifically the Richmond Police Department. And I think your Richmond Police Department is far more, if not the best police department in the county and probably in the state. I believe that. That's right, I believe that. Now, I also go along with candidate Ramsey, is that they're understaffed. Now, I'm not talking about what I read, I'm talking about what I know. I'm a retired police officer. Police officers have all kinds of resources available to them. But if you can't fulfill, if you can't give them a budget for it, then they got to go from what they know. And that is trend, analysis, expectations, listening to informants on the streets. They can develop information. They know what's going on. But when you hear about 1 police officer per beat, that's just for the beat. They have a cover police officer, they have a canine officer, and they have a sergeant that works in the same area. Your sergeant for this community is Sergeant Terry Ellis, who's in the back right now. I think he deserves a hand being here. That's your work,
The good thing, the bad news is we were in a really bad recession. The good news is we're digging our way out of that recession. And until we can do that, we'll be able to provide more police officers on the street. I know so often there's so many other aspects of keeping our community safe, like for example, neighborhood watches. And I really encourage you all to form some neighborhood watches. My neighborhood has it, North and Eastern, or just down the street has a neighborhood watch, and it's been helpful. And so I really encourage you strongly to do that. But it's going to take a lot, and that's why I support Measure U, because that's part of the money that we need to be able to bring our public safety up to speed. And so, it'll do a lot of other things, but it'll also be able to help us to fund and staff the public safety, which is our police department.
Okay, I called a police officer last night because I wanted to make sure I got some of the right information. Now, and it varies a little bit here, apparently. What I found out is we are at 182 sworn officers right now. 8 of those positions are frozen. And at the peak, our department had 198 sworn officers. I said, well, what's the problem out here in May Valley for folks? Why are they concerned about crime? What kind of crime is occurring? Well, it's break-ins to your home, it's your car, it's stealing stuff off your front porch. The police officer that I spoke with said the problem primarily is youth. Kids that are cutting school, and hanging out, and they're causing most of these crimes. If we do end up with more money, he suggested a Bravo units, which are a work bike patrol, special patrol, special enforcement, and focus on beat problems. And I think that with some of that Chevron money, maybe we could get some of that back.
Okay, there you go, Mayor.
So having more officers in our neighborhoods is certainly one way of reducing our crime further. And I have often responded to residents in May Valley when issues occurred, and I know and talked with our police chief, and he is always happy to provide extra coverage when needed. I'm happy to talk with him again. But it's very clear that it's just one way of reducing crime. We have to approach it. We have been approaching crime from the many angles that are necessary, approaching the roots of our crime by providing those opportunities for our youth so they won't get to the place of desperation and want to break into a home. So these are the ways that we have been. The other way is by neighbors looking out for neighbors with their neighborhood watch groups, and I know that has happened. Having neighbors own your neighborhoods, knowing when something is wrong, calling the police, our community-involved police force makes all the difference in the world.
Okay, well, the facts are a little bit different than that question. It turns out that that Beat 9 does not actually include Hilltop. Beat 9 is a large area, but Beat 8 is actually Hilltop. But Beat 9 is a large area, but it also has a very low rate of violent crime. For example, in the last 2-week period, there were no violent crimes in Beat 9. And despite occasional upticks in residential burglaries and car break-ins, usually has a low property crime level also. There's even data within the last year that showed overall crime rate in Beat 9, which is this area, was lower than the crime rate in Orinda. All that said, one of the problems is that Beat 8 and Beat 9 each have one officer, and when they have a serious problem, they have to back each other up, meaning there's somebody left out of the other area. But there are solutions on the way. Hilltop Mall is going to contract for their own officer, which will eliminate part of the backup problem. And the second part of it is that if Measure U passes, some of these frozen police officer slots will get opened up, and there might be a roving backup officer for both Beat 8 and 9 that will take care of some of those problems. Thank you.
Well, you hear a lot of if Measure U passes. You don't make your budget based on if. Question is, how much money do we have? How was the revenue coming in? That's the struggle we are having here. And it goes on this question, the issue of jobs and businesses now coming to Richmond. We're struggling here. That's why I proposed to expand the port of Richmond. That's one of the issues that we're having here. We have resources, and then we're going to have folks with vision to really expand those resources. I met with several officers during the secret night, and I shared with them my vision in terms of expanding that, and they shared with me how much of their budget has been cut. If we expand that port, that's more additional officers that we will be hired, because there will be a need for it. We also have more jobs, thousands of jobs coming out of that port. Again, we need people here with vision that really can understand and look at the resources from a global perspective rather than just looking at it from what they can see. You need people with vision. That's what we're lacking here. I think you can hear that from a lot of folks here running for office, especially the new guys. They share the same vision. That's what we need here in Richmond.
As much as I respect our police department, the chief and the city manager, my experience as a probation officer suggests that these departments don't know everything. That the community can frequently have a lot of better ideas, and that need to be an exchange where you, as you intern and have difficulties, can sit down with the police department and work out. Nobody's perfect. We all have to work together. One of the problems with our youth getting involved is that we have such a negative business attitude with from our staff and from our council. Businesses don't want to locate here. We need to get a positive attitude about locating businesses here where we can hire some of these young people. They have nothing to do but going up and down the streets. So we have to work collectively together, and the community has to be involved. Police can't do it all. We need to work as a team to resolve many of the problems that we're facing.
Thank you. It's interesting, I have a council person, Mr. Myrick, say he's got to find out what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on in his community. I do. I ride with Andre Hill all the time. I've ridden more than anybody ever in the history of the police department. When you guys called and you had the guy running speeding up the street here, I was with him. We caught the guys that were stealing the cars. At home burgs, I cannot accept home burglaries. My job is to be a manager at City Hall, and I need to find out why the chief is not doing something. Home burglary is the most scariest thing you ever want in the world, especially for people who live by themselves. I will not accept it. Let me tell you about some of the things that I'm concerned about here. Alcohol policy. I'm interested in East Bay water pipe replacement, garbage collection, drug dealing, loitering, school issues, previous repair on the fire roads, improvement of street lighting, dumping hazardous waste, and keeping communication between May Valley and your elected officials. It's our job to know what's going on, even though you are supposed to call us. We still have a good chief of police, but you know what? You got to do your job. That's just what transparency is about. Thank you.
I'm really about culturally competent public safety policies. I grew up in Iron Triangle. I remember one year going to 26 funerals in 1 year. 26 homicides, people that I knew personally, right? And so I'm that individual, you know, how can you model leadership? How can our community take cues from a dysfunctional leadership? And so I'm one of those individuals. I work with young people all the time with Rubicon programs. I'm a hard skill development specialist. I don't want our citizens thinking that Richmond is a dangerous place and that more police is going to solve the problems. When I went to that 26 funerals in 1 year, we had a lot of police on the streets. So that's not necessarily the problem. Better lighting, better communication between police and the community, between leadership and the community. Those things definitely play a critical role. Jobs. Addressing the barriers of those individuals who are desperate, who do engage in these kind of activities. I'm one of those individuals who can tell a young person, if you can buy dope at wholesale and sell that at retail, that's a transferable skill. And that's the kind of leadership that this community needs.
I have to respectfully disagree. I think it's clear that more police is a big part of the answer to getting the crime rate down. As an incumbent, we made some tough decisions. As the economy tanked, we had to cut back. The one area where we didn't cut back, we kept adding people, was the police department. We had downsized about 10 to 20% of the rest of the city, and that's tough. These are not frills. This is serious stuff. Libraries, parks, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been through this. I've made these tough decisions, and when we did the Measure U placement on the ballot, I added an amendment, which was accepted by my colleagues, that about roughly 2/3 of the money goes into two things: more police and fixing potholes. Now, the council's free legally to do what we want if Measure U passes, but that's what's in our budget now. So if somebody doesn't want to put an awful lot of money into police and pothole repair, then they're going to have to explain. They're going to have to explain to the public about why it is that they're not going to.
I have to respectfully disagree. The way we dropped homicide and crime down over the last 3 or 4 years wasn't just RPD, wasn't the Sheriff's Department, wasn't just ONS, wasn't just Bay Area peacekeepers. It was the citizens at the table. It was social services. It was community activists speaking their mind. I agree with Mr. Bates in that the police need our help. We can't allow them to be bullies with badges. And what I mean by that is they go into certain situations blind and they're trying to protect themselves. We, the community, make the difference. An area this large ought to be able to come to the table and speak with the captains, speak with the chief, speak with the deputy chief, and to voice your opinion. Yes, you need another beat officer, and you deserve it. And we have that right as a combined legislature.
We need business in Richmond. Sound, robust business. The council is still going to be Chevron and Measure U and going to tax their way out of this thing, and you just can't keep doing it. You'll be doing it over and over again. We need more police. If we need 250 policemen, we got to get it. And the only way we can get them is to have a robust community, business community that gives and pays their proper taxes and are benefited to be here in the city of Richmond. The city of Richmond has such a negative profile amongst the community that we just lose out on everything. The economy's been brought back up, but we're still in a downward spiral. Everybody says it's all good and everything's good, but we still got a lot of work to do. We got to rebuild this city. This city needs a rebuilding, a new vision. Thank you.
Thank you. A number of candidates mentioned the Neighborhood Watch program. I just wanted to note that we do have some neighborhood watches in our area, and if you are not a part of one but are interested, please talk to the officers. This is actually one of our neighborhood watch captains, so we appreciate that. Next question. Many residents of May Valley still remember the 2012 Chevron refinery fire quite vividly. The U.S. Chemical Safety Board findings cited Chevron for chronic failure to replace aging equipment and recommended that Richmond beef up its industrial safety ordinances to require more rigorous safety audits of Chevron Richmond. Please describe and comment on your assessment of the actions taken so far by the Richmond leadership, as well as any further actions you feel are warranted in the future to protect our city.
Okay, I think I'm going to start with the end of the question and then work back to the beginning. And first of all, I do support the lawsuit that the city filed against Chevron for the damages that the city incurred with the fire. But one of the things that never comes up that I think I'll have the opportunity to talk to you about is about every year and a half, 2 years, Chevron has a turnaround. And that's when they do basic maintenance all over the refinery, as I understand it. And for many years, they bring in out-of-state workers who are not union, and a lot of them, well, the majority of them are not up to the same kind of qualifications that union members are in the Bay Area that work in refineries. And so this is something that I think that we really need to focus on. I don't like the idea of out-of-state workers coming into to work at the refinery that are not good union jobs and they don't have proper training. And everybody else is going to talk about all the other issues, but that's one I wanted to bring up. Thank you. Which way we go?
That way. This way. Let's start writing meetings so I can stay under a minute. When considering the recent modernization project that the Planning Commission recommended, a set of conditions for approval of the modernization project. One of these was a safety condition to require a program to review and replace all piping that is subject to high temperatures and high pressure. Unfortunately, the council failed to accept these conditions by a vote of 5-2, with one of our council members, Rogers, voting against them. We have to be able to have council members who are going to be able to stand up to this organization and demand that they create safety measures that keep us safe. The city needs to find ways to protect us. We have to demand it. And because profits over health is not okay where I'm concerned.
Thank you. I feel very strongly about this because the city of Richmond, anytime there's a catastrophic event, anytime there's a hazardous situation, officials need to get involved immediately. They need to stand up, take the charge, be the champion. It's your city, it's your residents, it's your property. We have to take the charge. Now, what you may or may not know is that there's a lot of other facilities that get involved. There's federal, state, there's OSHA. They get involved, but it's our city. It's our city. If something happens here, we need to set that precedent. Yes, you're going to have other federal agencies, other executives coming in, other folks that are going to be doing tests and things of that nature, but we need to be, or you need to have a spokesman or a champion to lead that cause. It's our city.
Yeah, it's clear that the explosion put a lot of fear in a lot of people, and we're just fortunate that nobody lost their life that day. The other issue that I think has been touched upon is it's a state issue, and we need to make sure that Cal OSHA does its part to open it up for more inspections, and we need to have that as part of the regulations, as part of the conversation as we as the city, because we can't just enforce it as the city alone. We need to work with federal and state and other local agencies to make sure it happens. And it's not just Chevron. What about PG&E? We saw what happened out in San Bruno. There's other areas that we need to monitor and see what happens. That's why in the school district I've been so proud to work over the long period of the last 10 years of doing a lot to restore all the things to make sure that our schools are seismically safe. So I think this is a challenge, but one that we have to put into regulations and any agreement with Chevron going forward. Open the doors, let neutral third parties come in and do inspections, and make sure they do the needed repairs with independent audits.
As a member of the Planning Commission, I pushed for Alternative 11, championed by our State Attorney General, Camilla Harris. We also unanimously added conditions which would have made the refinery safer, provided more jobs, and held Chevron more accountable. Because Chevron pleaded no contest to 7 counts of criminal negligence, they were fined by the state for less than $1 million. That's 1/3 of what they are spending to buy the city council. And they were placed on a 3-year probation with 18 months left to serve. With this kind of leverage, we could have gotten more from Chevron than what we did. But we gave that away instead of pushing to institute the safety case regime, which was proposed by the U.S. Chemical Safety Board, and ensuring that over the course of 20 years, Chevron improved not just 20%, but 100%.
So this is one of the most important issues. Holding Chevron accountable, particularly when it comes to safety, is something that is absolutely necessary for all of us who live in this community. So there's a number of things that we've looked at, a number of things that the council has done. I was one that advocated for not only the lawsuit against Chevron, but every single industrial safety ordinance that's brought forward to try to hold them accountable. One in particular that I was a co-sponsor of was very simple, and somebody mentioned earlier, the inspectors. We wanted to make sure that they have more inspectors and that they paid for them. And you know, one of my opponents actually ridiculed me at the time, pretending that I didn't understand the issue because I wanted to get more inspectors in there to Chevron that would be paid for by Chevron. And one of my opponents actually ridiculed me for that, trying to change the issue. This is absolutely serious and we have to drill down. There's a lot of tough situations and tough decisions that we have to make, but we have to make sure that we're clear that Chevron doesn't run Richmond. Richmond is a city and Chevron has to be held accountable to us.
I know Chevron personally. I was a contractor. I worked there. The city government has to take some accountability also. At the time when Chevron was asking for these permits to redo this work, they shut them down. After that, that explosion happened. So you have to look at the timeline and see how it really worked out. Now, I've worked at Chevron in every refinery here in the Bay Area. And they did bring in contractors from out of state because they couldn't man up from all the communities that were here. They hadn't had a lot of people trained. I was trained. I was one of the lucky ones. I kept working for about 20 years in and out of each refinery. And I know that stuff like the back of my hand. So I can walk in there and I can tell you what the problem is. And I know Chevron, but yes, we need to hold them accountable for whatever mistakes they made and move forward. But also we got to look at Chevron as a partner and then have people that go in there and really do inspections. Thank you.
My assessment and moving forward. I want to applaud the City Council for the latest group of, I think you call it Alternative 11, latest group of greenhouse gases and so on. We adopted. I also want to thank and say that Chevron deserves some credit for meeting the environmental impact report. The key, largely to this, I believe, for a company that is responsible for about 35% of our budget, is to do what Attorney Ramsey said, and that is get the third parties. We don't make Chevron or any other business our enemy. They have challenges to our environment and to our livelihood. But we've got the EPA, we've got the BAA-MQD, we've got Communities for a Better Environment, okay? And this is what we do. We partner with some specialists who are good at this, and this is how we overcome the challenge. Thank you.
We're all going to say we want to hold Chevron accountable, obviously, but we need to understand the details. This Chemical Safety Board, all the apologies, Mr. Martinez, did not recommend the safety case. Their staff did. The majority of it, along with Congressman Miller and most of the main unions in this area, opposed the safety case. When we talk about the provisions for making sure that the piping's replaced and the cap cracker that Councilmember Beckles mentioned, we gotta listen to and understand the details. They wanted to attach it to the permit. That's illegal. What I suggested is get 3 independent people, have them study it, bring it back, and if it works, it makes sense, pass it as part of the ISO. The same way the last 5 amendments we passed, all of which I authored, have strengthened the ISO. That's what we need to keep doing.
Thank you so much. I have to agree with Mr. Rogers. It is about information, having the right information, and also accountability. But again, as a council, one of the things that has to stop taking place is introducing the cancers to the conversation. We have to have an environment that's conducive to having healthy dialogue. And I think that when you have healthy dialogue, information can be exchanged in a way that's not emotionalized, and people can make sound decisions that way. Some decisions just come down to pragmatism. It has nothing to do with allegiances. It has nothing to do with politicizing the issue. Sometimes you have to make a decision with vision and just stand firm. And so I'm not necessarily anti-Chevron. I wouldn't take any money from Chevron, but at the same time, I'm willing to work with a company like Chevron.
Thank you very much. You know, one of the things that I see here is that this is one of the main reasons why we got to keep Doctors Medical Center open, because it's not, are we going to have a fire, it's when are we going to have a fire. Anytime you have a refinery like that in your community, those kind of things happen. But what really cracks me up about this, these people here can't even run their city budget, and they're trying to run a refinery that they know nothing about how a refinery runs. Let's let the regulatory people, the federal government. Can you imagine if Gail McLaughlin went to the federal government and said, "My name's Gail, and I don't want to hear what you got to say"? What are they going to tell you? Get out of here, Gail. So, I mean, you know, one of the things that we have to do, we have to sit down at the table, we have to use intelligence, we have to be able to work with them, and they pay 37% of our budget. Let's all be good neighbors. Let's hold them accountable, but let's make sure that we keep them working with us. Thank you.
I want to ask a question. Is there anything that you know that is 100 years old that doesn't require some kind of repairment?
Nothing.
Oh. That's what we are going through. The previous council approved the modernization plan for Chevron several years ago. And we went going forward, probably wouldn't have had this kind of accident. The second thing is that Chevron is the largest taxpayer in this city. You've got to work and cooperate with them. In reference to what we're doing today and what we've done, we have followed. Nobody on this city council, no one on our staff are expertise. We follow the wise expertise of the organization that presented it, not the CPE and the Richmond Progressive Alliance. They want to run Chevron out of town, and I'm not for it. We work with Chevron, we keep them here, make them accountable, and get that plant up and running and safe.
In business, continuous maintenance is part of any business. I think that's what we see in Chevron. You have to allow them to engage in maintaining their refinery. Now, there's a difference in terms of approach among the three candidates here. I'm one person here that can tell you I can work with Chevron, I can work with any other business in Richmond. What we need here is somebody that understands the need of business community and the community itself. And you have to have a balance. There's no doubt that filing a lawsuit was the right thing to do. I think any government should do that. That's what you're expected to do, to protect people in your community. However, you have to do that with common sense, not engage in ongoing aggressive engagement with your businesses. You want to have a relationship because it's mutually beneficial for you to have businesses in your community. If we have businesses here, we wouldn't have $7 million deficit. That's what we're struggling with here. It's not allowing businesses to come here and flourish. That's what I intend to do, is to have a mutually beneficial relationship with businesses here and make them work for us.
This is a two-part question. One part addresses the past, one the future. As far as the past goes, in July, the Richmond City Council adopted a permit, or approved a permit for the Chevron modernization, which is the most rigorous regulatory act on any refinery in U.S. history. We also moved to adopt all of the Chemical Safety Board recommendations by revising our industrial safety ordinance. So we've done that. Now, unless you live under a rock or you can't read, I think you know which candidates up here are most likely to continue to exercise rigorous regulatory actions on Chevron. Thank you.
So first of all, it's clear that our community deserves health and safety. And that means that the oil refinery in our city's boundaries has to be responsible and accountable to the community of Richmond. So that is what I have always held, and that is why I stand up to Chevron, because it has not done that over the course of its 100 years of doing business in Richmond. We have among the highest rates of asthma, cancer, and heart disease. Now, with this new project, some good conditions came forward. Some of us wanted more conditions. The fact that this horrible, horrific fire happened with this toxic plume going over our city and over the whole region is the reason that I stood for the lawsuit. It took me a while, but the council, some easily came around to this lawsuit. Others took a little more pressure. But it is because of this lawsuit that we are going to get the damages that we deserve, and that we are going to assure that a fire like that never happens again, in the benefit and to the benefit and to the rights of the health and safety of our community.
There is a bit of a public transit void in May Valley when trying to reach certain destinations, Orinda, for example. But perhaps the most prevalent in our minds is the lack of easy access to BART. A proposed W-BART project would extend BART from either the Richmond or the El Cerrito del Norte station into San Pablo, Hercules, and Pinole, providing much more convenient access to BART for residents of May Valley and other northern and eastern portions of the city. Are you willing to support a comprehensive study of transit needs in this area that could lead to such an extension, irrespective of the outcome and without placing biases or constraints on the study? Why or why not?
Yeah, I believe this is critical. As a school board member, transportation is key for all of our students, and so I take public transportation a lot, and I think that it's critical and important. Where I live, we do have a BART station, and it makes a huge difference just having one in downtown Richmond. So being able to expand and have that talk with Zach Millay a lot about this and make sure that I communicated with him and our desires. I'm glad we have somebody who actually lives in this community rather than having somebody in San Francisco who's really not paying attention. So I think being able to have that comprehensive study will be critical and key and help deal with a lot of regional problems that we see in terms of the congestion on the freeway that we see trying to get out, in terms of people wanting to have businesses in these communities because of access to regional transportation that would make it better for everyone. So I think this is a win-win if we engage in that study and look and get your input in communications to be able to support that. So I do support that conversation.
This way.
Oh, this way?
Thank you. Yes, I'm very much in support of reconfiguring logistics, certainly to provide access to BART. I know as a, when I was renting years ago from Hilltop Bayview, I would take BART to Fremont when I was a postmaster. And I would take the bus from there to either Del Norte or Richmond, and then from there take the BART to the end of the line in Fremont. So I know the need for it, but it would have to come before not only the community but the citizenry as to what and where you want it. We don't want shuttle buses going through communities. We certainly want them on thoroughfares. That would be nice, that would be good. But to enhance it for public access, certainly I'm in agreement to that. Thank you.
Yes, I would fully support a comprehensive study for transit for this community. It's important that everyone be able to get where you need to go, and it's just around the corner. So you should be able to get there if you don't have transportation. I really believe, though, I believe in empowering communities. I believe an empowered community is a powerful community. And although BART is not within our jurisdiction, I believe that a vocal community with leadership that's willing to listen to you, listen to it, is what's going to make a difference. And I believe that shouting out by the numbers of you, whether it be a petition, whether it just be me as a council member, signing on to your petition saying this is what the community wants and we support it as a council, I believe that would be something that would absolutely be beneficial, and I would absolutely 100% wholeheartedly support.
Right.
There's a nice gentleman in the audience that I had the pleasure to talk to for quite a while last week. And he has a lot of issues with trying to get around out of the May Valley, Carriage Hills area. I would support a study, of course, and this is going to be a tough nut to crack. I am not in any way well informed about some of the transportation issues. All I could talk to the gentleman about was paratransit, but that's not really what he needs. So then I talk about the county connection, but that doesn't come through most of these areas either. So I don't know if there was anybody on the council, Mayor, who was on a transportation committee or regional, I don't know. But my heart goes out to you. He explained to me that in Europe, of course, they have transportation everywhere and no one needs a car. And he's right. And maybe it's Chevron's fault.
I'm going to just bypass that one. There's a whole lot to talk about Chevron, but we're talking right now about BART. And the way to, first of all, the City Council passed a resolution in support of a comprehensive study. We did say that we do think it should not leave Richmond BART as a dead-end spur. It should pick up at Richmond BART, because otherwise our downtown gets left in a real empty place. And we're in the process of moving forward a renaissance in downtown. So we want the BART to not be a spur, a dead-end spur. We also want to see more AC transit for May Valley. You should not be left without that. And we need to advocate further to AC transit about that. Because of climate change, and bringing back to Chevron how they haven't been a solution for the climate change process, we do need people out of their cars onto public transportation to resolve the problems that our planet faces. So public transportation is the way to do that.
Well, the question asked, would you support it? I'm way out in front of that. I'm part of the solution. I sit on more regional boards and commissions than anybody else on the City Council. One of them is the West Contra Costa Transportation Authority Committee, Advisory Committee. The other one is Contra Costa Transportation Authority. At West County, WICTAC, I voted to add $300,000 to exactly this study. Then last week, out at Contra Costa Transportation Authority, I voted to add another 300,000. BART's throwing in 300,000. The Transportation Commission is throwing in another $200,000. We have $1.1 million. The study will start in the spring. It'll involve every transit agency that serves West County. It'll do exactly what you're talking about here. And part of the reason it's getting done is because I sit on those boards and commissions and I voted for it. Thank you.
Let me make a quick disclaimer because the current bank director actually was involved in running his campaign and he ran, so this question didn't come through me. So they clearly, when Zach brought this issue to the city council a few years ago, it was rejected. The comprehensive study was rejected. So he contacted me and said, can we work with the city council to make this happen? I'm just hearing for the first time that they approved the comprehensive study. We actually went before the Chamber of Commerce together to ask them to allow a comprehensive study. There's obviously some differences between Zach and I, even though we're friends. However, I disagree with him in making Richmond a dead end. But we must have a comprehensive study. That's the bottom line, because that will allow us to actually be more inclusive in terms of transportation in the whole area. So I do support that, and I hope we are taking note of everyone here that said they will support that comprehensive study, because I'm writing that.
Before it's possible to study, I would suggest also whoever is the mayor should facilitate a meeting between the AC Transit and board with members of this community and sit down and discuss it. You got to understand that this city council has its own jurisdiction, board has its jurisdiction, and AC Transit, and you elect those people. They should be accountable to you as a community. Don't always come to us, and with us, we'll help you, but they need to come out here. And you can get 3 of the members less a quorum and make sure that they come in and hear what you have to say and work to resolve and make commitments to you. They come in and ask you for your vote, then why don't you put the pressure on them like you put it on us as a council?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You know what? Tom Butt just blows me away. He just thinks he's the greatest thing since Martin Luther. You know what? I sat on the doggone board longer than Tom. I voted for it before Tom got on the board. Actually, Ritterman was there before me, and then Tom wasn't even there. You cheating. That's why, read that article called The Snake, Arkansas Snake, when he says, well, we'll get over it. Well, that's what he's doing right now, laughing, because I'm right. I've sat on that board longer than him, and yes, I have voted for it. But you know what? Just a minute ago, I was talking to you about Chevron and transparency. This council knows nothing about what's going on. Listen to what they're saying. These are your elected officials. They don't even know what's going on. And we tell them all the time. And the mayor is right. It came to the city council, and the council knew about it and voted on it. So these are the people that you elected here talking to, ones that are elected now, other than myself and Tom, don't know what's going on in your own city. How can they make a decision for you? You know what the next thing is? November the 4th. You make a decision for them. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to stand up here and pretend that I'm well-versed and knowledgeable about the situation, but I can appreciate the business acumen of Tom Butt. I would definitely join some of those commissions and get involved and educate myself. And I think that that's one of the things that's important as a leader. I can't blow a lot of smoke up anyone's whatever, but the point I'm trying to make is that you can't make a sound decision like this without being educated and informed. And so that's one of the things that I will able to do, educate myself so that I can make the most effective and sound decision possible.
When we're looking at these plans, we need to have people that are going to figure out the plans that work, not the things that sound politically sexy. And Mr. Martinez earlier commented about a county utility tax to solve our problems at Doctor's Hospital. Sounds sexy, but it doesn't work because no way people out in the parts of the county are going to tax themselves to save our hospital. By the same token, a comprehensive plan including everything. That means that we leave a dead-end spur. That sounds great on the surface, but think about it. If we leave that dead-end spur there, about half the community or more will never buy into this thing. This idea is dead in the water, okay? So we need people who can be realistic, who can tell hard truths, and that is a hard truth. We cannot have a comprehensive plan. It makes no sense because the spur is never going to happen. This area will never support it.
I'm full on board for the comprehensive study. And I'm full on board for moving into the future and not doing things the way we've been doing here. We're not even able to meet our $141 million budget because we're not thinking forward and out of the box. We've been too conservative in some areas. I've lived in this area. I owned a condominium for 4 years here. And those of you that don't have transportation or who know this area, do you know how hard it is to get around? From here, and it's already been mentioned, Orinda. What about the other side of Carriage Hills? You know, the back road to Martinez, right? These hills. Hello, can I get a witness on that? You know I'm a minister. I need amen. I think we should have studies of this area. I think we need to open it up and see how to move the best people in the county and in the state around. Thank you.
I'm all for it also. If Tom says he's got it done, kudos to you. If Corky's been on the council and he's got it done, kudos to them. Let's move on. Let's get Bart going. Let's go ahead and do it. I see a way we can do it. I don't know why it hasn't been done a long time ago. That is the issue. There's things that we should have done a long time ago we're catching up to. And I applaud them for catching up to it, but we just got to move forward. Let's get Bart going. Let's do it. Let's move on forward. Thank you.
So, I'm a little upset at my friend Tom Buck because he stole my thunder. He said what I was going to say. The truth is, you know, there was a little, you know, I don't know why Corky went on the attack against Tom. The three of us actually on this agree. The three of us, myself, Mr. Jose, Mr. Butt, sit on the WITAC board representing the city of Richmond, the Wisconsin Cross Transportation Authority. And we all voted in agreement that we should fund a comprehensive study, and as Tom laid out, funding it with $300,000 in WITAC money, and that should consider all options. We also were in agreement that that turning the Richmond BART into a spur, from the Richmond perspective, is a non-starter. That's not something the city of Richmond wants to see. But we were willing to study it. And so I was proud to support that. But the next question is how much resources are bodies like WITAC, where we represent you, going to devote towards public transportation, and how much are they going to devote towards trying to make I-80 move quicker? And Mr. Butt, myself, and others on the board want to see us devote that money towards public transportation. And that's a real key question.
Yes, I also support a comprehensive study for extending public transit. And one of the reasons that Zach Mallett's proposal to the City Council was problematic is that it did not, it was not placed forward without biases. His bias was to make Richmond Station the spur and then continue from the north there. So to me, it's only logical that the tracks continue from Richmond and move forward. That way you have less to build. I mean, it's just economically and culturally the best thing to do. The BART station, Richmond BART station, is a transportation hub. It's where the train stops. So it's just logical.
This should be a fun one. What is the one attack ad, statement, or published accusation made during this election which you think is the most misleading, erroneous, or unfair? And what would you like to say to everyone to address it?
I think that's a good question. I think the elephant in the room here is Chevron. I just want to be clear about it. And I've I've said this at previous candidate night meetings, I think that people should basically ignore all the Chevron mail. Chevron attacks people, most of those attacks are not true. And for the ones that are true, I want to remind you that they're not attacking me, they're not supporting me. The ones that are true, I want to remind you, okay, if Chevron turned their investigators loose on the other candidates, they'd probably find some stuff, okay? We are candidates for city council. We're not candidates for St. So we need to remember to throw that stuff in the garbage. And I want to say that also about people they're supporting. They're supporting Mr. Ramsey and Ms. Powers. And I want to be clear, Chevron makes tactical decisions about who they support. Doesn't mean that those folks are going to vote with them every single time. And so ignore that also. Judge the people they support and oppose based on their merits, not on where Chevron's coming down.
In that I am not a Chevron candidate, and I'm running a moderate grassroots campaign. I did for the first time on yesterday see a mailing that one of my endorsers put out. My name was on the mailer as being endorsed by this entity. As I opened up the mailer, I saw some very ugly things about Council Member Javanka Beckles. And it hurt me. And an hour after I received it, I met with her. And on last night, I apologized. I had no knowledge, and I want to publicly do what I did last night. I had no knowledge. I don't condone it. It didn't come from me. I apologize that my name is associated with that piece.
I've gotten all the mail and everything, the Joker mail and all that, Boogeyman, Halloween costume mail and all that. It is quite simply just disgusting. It really brings the level of decorum down. You know, for the whole city, it just looks really, really bad. It's a national issue now because Chevron's put the money in there. It's not really Chevron, it's the people they give it to and the campaign committee. You know, they invent all this stuff. You know, Chevron probably won't condone that kind of stuff. Yeah, they give them the money, but the committee leaders do this stuff. So you got to attack those people. You got to tell them. You got to have some kind of cleanness about these politics. This is my second opportunity at it, and I'm having a good time. And I'm glad I'm not a part of that. I don't have any money from Chevron or anybody else. Thank you.
Yeah, the negative ads and the attack ads that have gone out from Chevron, from moving forward, were absolutely atrocious. They're goofy and they're plain stupid, I think. And I also think they're not effective. I don't think anybody's going to vote based on any of that garbage because at the end of the day, you can look at it and, I mean, you know, I'm going to use this example. The ones I see about my buddy Eduardo here are downright hilarious because you have to be an idiot to actually believe this guy's an anarchist, right? So, so it's at the end of the day, you know, I think they're wasting a lot of money. I think that money could be better used on a whole lot of other programs, like Doctor's Hospital, like, you know, a whole lot of other things that would be great. And I wish that, you know, that sort of thing was not happening in this campaign.
Unfortunately, some people are naive enough to believe some of the mailers. I've had people ask me about the mailer about my poor job attendance. Now, my government job is not a government job. It's a volunteer position with no pay that requires more time and energy than simply attending meetings. My absences couldn't have been too big of a problem on the budget advisory committee because they made me the chair. When I'm not able to attend meetings, I keep up with the issues, read the minutes, and and whenever I am absent, it's because there's another meeting I have to be at. So I'm active in the community, serving on the West Contra Costa County Sierra Club Executive Committee, on the East Bay Sanctuary Covenant, on the Richmond Planning Commission, and I do a lot of stuff. You know? So don't believe it.
Don't believe it.
Yeah, thank you. believe what like Jay said, just to answer the question, the one about Eduardo, I think was very disciplined. I don't think he's an anarchist. Actually, when he was walking one day, I stopped and picked him up and took him over to Kaiser. Also doing an event after Javonka was being beat up at council meetings for the LGBT community, because I thought it was critical and important to show leadership and do what was right. But I also feel like the candidates talk about what they don't want to do, and then I read this thing called the Richmond Sun, and they make personal attacks on my law practice, on me, about what I did, and they haven't apologized to me. And I told Eric Zell myself that he shouldn't be doing these ads against these candidates. So I think the problem in the city is that they engage in behavior and think that it's just part of the campaign. And I think they have to start saying all of it's wrong. And so for me to be personally attacked was very disappointing. And I told them that I will feel bad one day, but I forgave them, because I don't believe that it's good to harbor ill will against anybody. And we're all in it for the right reasons, and we're trying to do good. And this is a hard job, whether you're school board or any elected position, it's difficult. So I thank you for this question.
Well said. I think I used to mentor managers and supervisors that would always come to me, and they would tell me, you know, these lies are being spread about me, like, you know, a postmaster or a police officer. And I would always tell them, you got to outlive it. You know who you are. You outlive it. You outlive it with your integrity, with your credibility, and certainly with your compassion. These individuals up here have not said nothing negative about me. I respect them. I know who they are. And that's the difference. That's what these forums are all about. You get to know, you get to feel their heartbeat and know what they're really about. And then you read something and say, well, that's not who I'm at. Well, that's what these are for. Know the person for what they stand for, what they believe, what their track record is about, what their integrity is about, certainly what their credibility is about.
So you'll be getting this in the mail, it's a letter, and it's endorsed by people who really know me. Black people, Latinos, black, white folks. The people that know me know this is my demeanor. People have never seen me get angry. It takes a lot to get me to a point where I even yell, where I even speak above this. My wife, we've been together 14 years. This is the kind of conversation we have, no matter how angry we get. So for me to get to a point of anger, to use the kind of language that I do not use on an everyday basis, you know I was provoked big time. So I say that to say that Chevron's spending $3 million. Ask yourselves why. Why would they spend $3 million to attack me the way they are? It's because they know that I will hold them accountable. So when you get this, please read it, because it explains everything. It explains what happened. It explains that I've been bullied for 4 years, and I finally stood up for myself. And I think that every person who's voted should stand up for themselves as well.
Donna Powers, and I threw my hat in the ring on my own without any man or anyone telling me to do this. And Chevron, on their own, decided to support me, okay? It's been very uncomfortable being supported by Chevron, because it's not exactly the kind of campaign that I ran in the 90s when I was on the city council. And it really wasn't what I was expecting now. Boy, have times changed in Richmond the last few years. What do I not like about this campaign? Well, I know over on Bay Road, I didn't like having a penis drawn on my sign on my head. That was sort of rude. I didn't like having some of the hate calls that I've gotten, I believe, from RPA. I didn't like it when the mayor's husband yelled in my face demanding to know where I live, because he thought I didn't live in the city. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I don't like about this. And I really don't like that a man that I always considered a friend for years, that I got along with on the city council, his kids are writing trash talk about me on their webpage. So there's a lot not to like. Thank you.
She said on both the council, RPA and my husband. To ask the question to her is totally legitimate. In terms of
the fact that Chevron is assaulting our democracy with $3 million plus in terms of hit pieces in our mailboxes, billboards, airwaves, is really an affront to all of us. We should feel insulted. In terms of the worst that I experienced, it's clear that the travel issues that they are trying to put out there about me are bald-faced lies. Richmond Confidential did a wonderful article where they did research. 2 city-funded trips is all I've taken in the last 5 years. A $500 trip to Yosemite for Building Livable Communities Conference, and our sister city trip to Cuba, the first one in 14 years. $3,000 plus is all that 2 trips spent. Whereas Councilmember Bates, who's the Chevron candidate, spent 43 days away in the past 5 years, $13,000 plus of city money. So it's bald-faced lies.
Well, you know, these pieces are stupid and they are funny. But the same thing is they actually work. If they didn't work, people wouldn't be spending millions of dollars doing them. So I guess I've been lucky. I've only had a couple of things come out on me, both of them courtesy of my opponent here, Mr. Bates. But one of them that came out a few days ago had a snake on it. The Arkansas rattlesnake. And I actually like that so much I'm going to use it in my next mailing. What it said, lying to his colleagues in 1999, Bud embarrassed the city by accusing African-American elected officials, Irma Anderson, Matt Bates, Lisa McIntosh, and Richard Griffin, along with Jewish councilman Alex Evans, of financial misdealings. After a raid and extensive investigation over 6 months, blah, 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 not one African-American elected official received even a traffic ticket. Well, first of all, Alex Evans is not Jewish. Irma Anderson has endorsed me. And the fact is that I had nothing to do with instigating the investigation, but it did end up indicting Darrell Reese and next.
When I started this campaign sometime last year, I made 2 promises to the community leaders that asked me to run. One was to keep it clean, no negative attacks. The second was not to collect money from any corporation. I've kept those 2 promises. Now, for the past 2 months, you heard it from Tom Buck and his 2 boys. I will call them boys in the hood now. And they live in Point Richmond. They have consistently, continuously attacked me, and the whole thing started with Tom. I understand this is politics, but you have to be more mature than that if you are an elected official. There are certain expectations. Even if your kids are acting, even if your voice are being negative online, it's incumbent on you as an elected official to be above that, but he hasn't. In fact, he started the whole attack, personal attack on me. Think about it. How do you go online and write that Uche Owahemo is not on the Workforce Investment Board? Think about it. This man appointed me there, and he approved it. So what kind of lie is that? That's the kind of leadership we have here. We need to clean it up. Really. We need to clean it up. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been accused of everything. But you have no evidence, Mr. Buck, that I had anything to do with that piece that was out of you. Let me say this. I have been in public office for 35 years. I've been harassed, I've been blasted, and sometimes I'm supported. We have no control over any of these PACs, so-called PACs, in terms of what they write. And I will say a lot of the information that you see, some of it is half true, some of it is outright lies. But that is a political arena. It's at the presidential level, it's at the Congress level, it's at the government level. That's the nature of politics. And I have been victim consistently, and on occasion I have been on the receiving end and on the giving end, and that's the way politics is. It's unfortunate. But I don't apologize. I don't faint. I take my hits just like you should. If you're in a boxing ring, you're going to get punched. So don't get in politics if you don't want to get punched.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know, 2010, Tom Butt, Dale McLaughlin, and myself, Jamalka Beckles, took the money from the card clubs to make sure, and they said hit pieces out the other way. That was okay. But one of the things that really troubles me is when an African-American person like Jamalka Beckles says in a public setting, all crackers need to die, and African-American people will never have nothing. That is really terrible in a public meeting. You can't get that angry in a public meeting, or you shouldn't be sitting there. Tom Butt and I were like bosom buddies. Tom Butt did call the FBI. I was right there when he did it on those people. He plays it off like, bro, I was there, they'll get over it. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Tom knows the truth, and Tom is a master manipulator of words. I've been with this man for 17 years. I got no reason to lie. And he knows that. So, you know, it's okay though, because we'll get over it. You know, it's not a big deal. See him smiling? I love Tom. He's a great guy.
It's unfortunate that it's the nature of the beast. And I don't necessarily condone it, but as they said, when you get into politics, they told me that you know, you have to roll with the punches sometime. And so it's just unfortunate. I throw all that stuff in the trash, straight to the recycle bin. But then again, if you are endorsed and you are apologetic, and I'm not hitting my man Henry Washington here, don't pose for the pictures. You know, people act like they don't know what's going on. You know, they didn't get these billboards didn't come, these images didn't come off Google. You know, they didn't Google these images. So if you know that this is the type of stuff that goes on and you don't condone it, don't pose for the picture.
I just wanted to say for the record that the question was written with the intent of allowing candidates the opportunity to refute things that have been said about them and to tell the truth. And I would just point out to the audience, observe which candidates took that opportunity and which candidates misused the opportunity. Measure U on the ballot asks Richmond residents to approve a 1/2 cent tax to fund and maintain city services such as public safety, public health and wellness programs, city youth programs, and street paving. If passed, the wording of this measure will give the city additional monies to spend on a fairly broad spectrum of services. Given that funding is limited, both existing and proposed new, while the needs in these areas are not, how would you prioritize spending the new funds? Please make sure your response includes specific expenditure categories mentioned in the ballot measure in order of your priority.
All right, Measure U will go into the general fund, and so it can be used for anything. This means that the money can be shifted to meet whatever fiscal holes need to be filled. But how it's spent will be determined by who you elect to the city council. So some of the, I would have a lot of the money, as I mentioned before, go to city youth programs, because we need to make sure that our youth have the opportunity. We need to be sure that our youth has the opportunity to have experiences that make them better people, that teaches them teammanship. For instance, when I was at Crescent Park during Easter holiday, all the kids were just hanging out. And just right down the street was a rec center that was empty. So we need the money to make sure that our youth is taken care of.
So, first and foremost, first thing I would do is Measure U's passing. First of all, by the way, we need to pass Measure U. Measure U is very critical for the city's long-term stability. But the first thing I would do is keep my promise to what we've already said. The current council has made a commitment, all 7 of us originally, and when we voted on it unanimously, to invest a significant portion of that money into to fixing the streets across the city of Richmond. The finance director has a plan where we bond the money out so that we can do it all fairly quickly. And then the next thing that we said we want to do is we want to bring back services that we may have had to cut down a little bit in this last budget. The last thing, I agree with Mr. Martinez. Funding programs for youth is absolutely critical, and if you look at the survey, we did a survey when we were first talking about putting this on the ballot, and we asked, voters what they'd be most likely to support a tax for, and funding for youth was at the top of every single survey. There were two different forms. Funding programs for youth to keep kids off the street was on the top of both. So we need to make sure that we keep those promises.
Measure U is a good opportunity to obtain funds for the city. Again, it would supply another police officer for your area here, which is probably pretty well needed if you have that kind of crime. Again, when we build our parks and things, we have to put that money to use by building little rec centers in every park, which have kids and someone there to supervise it. So kids can have things to do off school, off campus, after school, and things like that. They promote community when kids are happy. So that kind of funds could go for everything. It could help us out a lot. With police, again, like Corky says, it needs a grandfather clause somewhere where it can be shut out once it's taken its course and it's done what it needs to do. But we all need that. So I support it, but again, like Corky said, I support a grandfather clause with it. Thank you.
The budget in Richmond needs to be looked at under a microscope. We need to do things new. We need a broad audit and see where we can cut and see where we can reallocate funds. Measure U of a half cent can bring in a lot of money. But again, it's going into the general fund. It's not earmarked. We can say what we want to do with it. But we got money now that is coming in and we're not putting it in the right places. If the youth are the top two things, let's earmark some of the money for the youth. So that in the urban areas and even here, they're not on the streets. But we should think about critical pedagogy and going out pretty schools.
I want to answer the question directly. The question is, what do you want? $3.75 million, which is bonded for pothole repair. It gives us about $30 million to redo a third of the streets, instead of what we're doing now, which is that we're not paying the money. What we're going to do is pay 1.5 to 2 times as much 2 years from now to fix those streets. We have to fix the streets. It's not fiscally responsible to kick the can down the road. $2.1 million for police, $1 million for youth programs in the forms primarily of libraries and parks and recreation, $500,000 for firefighters. Why did we put a sunset clause on? Because I didn't want to give people a choice of funding and kind of a funding right. It's up to the voters. If you think this is a good thing, you can vote for it, and they'll go on permanently. If you don't, vote against it. But you folks have the choice.
I support Measure U, but not without a sunset clause. I don't think people want to pay more taxes, period. But I think that it's definitely something that's needed in this community, and I definitely think that we should have funds allocated towards public safety and youth. I'm a strong advocate for social enterprise, and so I would love for our community to have access to more unrestricted funding, programs like the RISE Center, Urban Till, so those organizations can do what they can, what they will with the money, and address some of the barriers. I think a lot of problems that we have in our community is that people haven't had, there's not access to individuals there's not access to resources for individuals to address barriers. And if you don't have a driver's license in this community, if you come from a single parent home, second, third generation welfare, public housing, all those different things play a significant role in your thinking and your mindset. So I think it's extremely important to allocate that money towards a renaissance, a cultural renaissance in this community.
I just have to say, I have never, ever voted for Measure U. I've been the one that's been against it. And when Jim Rogers turns around and says that it's like the Richmond City Council is, buddy, when they feel like it. When Mr. Rogers says, well, take a tax for effort, or just vote against it. That's the wrong way to treat people. And I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, when the mayor was talking about Nat Bates being gone, we were in China. We brought a $200 million project here, and out of that project, $500,000 went into the city coffers, and we sold Westridge apartments for $10 million, and the money was gone in one day. So this tax thing, you heard them all up here. One wants to put it in parks, one wants to do youth center. I would like to put it in Richmondville if I could put it anywhere, but I'm not voting for it, and I'm going to send you something in the mail and say, please don't you let them get themselves together. This council is dysfunctional because it doesn't understand the business. Don't you pay the bill for their inability to manage your money. No, I'm married to you.
Our legal staff indicated that we could not designate monies outright that requires a 2/3 majority. So therefore, they have to go into general funds. And already out here, Mr. Rogers already chopping up the money. This is why many of you sometimes don't pass, because everybody got their own little idea. The primary reason I voted for Measure U is to fix the streets. Mr. Goins indicated that we could leverage the finance and to get a bond, and then within 3 years, we could probably clean up and repair every street in the city of Richmond. It had nothing to do with going in the recreation, the youth, and the library. If we have a few dollars, maybe we'll do that. But the primary objective was to fix the street, and that has been the #1 concern of every citizen that we've come into contact with. Fix my streets, and that's where I'm committed to.
I agree with that. I think when you read the whole content of that measure, it's intended for infrastructure fixing. That's really what you want to fix our road. That's what that measure was for. It's intended for. But when you look at the whole overall management of the city of Richmond, what we are lacking here is responsible leadership. I think everyone is touching. How do you run a city for decades? You never have a comprehensive audit. That doesn't make any sense. I hear Tom said, well, we do audits. Well, you do your little audit internally, and then you tell your staff what to write. That's not audit. You want to have a comprehensive audit that really begin to address some of the challenges they are having here. That's what I intend to do. I know NAS has agreed for a comprehensive audit. We need to have Tom agree to it. Whether he loses or not, he will still be on the city council. So we need to have responsible leaders there that want to do comprehensive audit so we can move this community forward.
During the last several years, we've been lucky. We were able to take a lot of money from redevelopment, a lot of money for the stimulus funds, and do some unprecedented work on our streets. As a result, we improved the condition of our streets 32% since 2007. But both of those sources are gone, and they're not coming back. And so Measure U is really essential to be able to not only maintain, but to continue to improve the conditions of our streets and roads. Without Measure U, the gains that we have achieved to date are going to go downhill, and they're going to go downhill fast. We absolutely have to pass it. My highest priority for spending is for streets and roads. The second priority would be public safety, and the third priority would be other infrastructure like parks and community centers. And I think that's where most of the council is.
First of all, I just want to mention that our budget, we had a $6 million deficit, but we plugged that because we had $18 million in our surplus. So we plugged it. We still have $12 million in our surplus, which is more than any other year in the past recent years. The reason that we had that $6 million deficit was because of the Chevron fire lowering property values. Now those are going to be coming up. We expect the budget problems to be temporary. But Measure U is totally necessary. My priorities would be to float a bond for street paving because our streets will not get better, and then we'll have to put more money into making them better and have a budget problem going forward. I think youth issues are very important, so that's My next priority, that does help our crime by giving our youth opportunities to advance themselves and not end up in trouble.
You've all heard about the hacienda. It's public housing. And the city neglected to repair a roof for over 6 years. The roof leaked, and it leaked down through the walls, and it caused a heck of a lot of problems for poor people, and most of them are poor, frail, elderly people. The same thing goes with our roads. You cannot neglect the road. The longer you neglect it, the more expensive it is. You have to take it all the way down and build it back up again. You can't defer maintenance. I'm not so sure how I feel about Measure U. I'm concerned that there's no sunset on it, and I'm concerned the money's going to get used up for other, they're not frivolous things, but it ain't like a road that a Volkswagen could get lost in one of the potholes. You need to take care of your infrastructure to encourage businesses to come to Richmond. Who's going to come and put a multi-million-dollar complex up if the roads look like?
Okay, so first of all, I just have to say that I've never heard an elected official stand up and say, our budget is a mess and we're in trouble, but don't you dare help out by voting for a tax. What? That's ridiculous. If we're in trouble, we need your help. We need to all chip in and help each other and help us get out of this mess that we're in. And we're not really in a mess because we do have a surplus in our budget. So all of the programs and the issues that this bond would help are incredibly vital. But for me, my priorities would be youth programs, number 1, street paving, number 2, libraries, health and wellness, and public safety would be last. And why do I say that? Oakland has way more officers than they could even dream of, and their crime is out the roof. So it's not about public safety, it's about dealing with the systemic and the root causes of crime. And that's why our crime has gone down 66% in the last 33 years.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with Councilmember Nat Bates. When Measure U passes people, certainly a lot of the issue has already been dispositioned. It's already been uniquely strategized where that money's going to be. And it's because of the voices of people. We want our streets fixed. That's where it's going to go. How dare we put that money somewhere else? That's why you have a council. But we can lead an effort. We can strategize and lead the effort to certainly put that money where it's going to be earmarked, and then look at where it needs to be put somewhere else. Don't just sit back and put it somewhere else because that's what you want to do for your neighborhood. Our streets are atrocious. I don't know about any of the city councilmen, a few here, that I see in the neighborhood, but the southwest side of Richmond, the south 4th, 5th, 6th Street, those streets are atrocious. Up in Yuba area, McLaughlin, those streets are atrocious. I go through those streets, and some of you get flat tires, the damn road. We need to do better.
Yes, thanks. I think you've heard it's been echoed a lot. I think infrastructure improvements are critical. Obviously, public safety. Where I disagree, though, and this is where my experience comes as a school board member, because of the local control funding formula, the school district's going to actually get increased about $75 million and we're going to go to extended day. So rather than that money being put in that way, I'd rather go to senior services and more park rec facility needs. I think those are critical and something that we can do. Also, when you talk about doing a bond on this sales tax money, they got to be very careful about terms and conditions. And I'm an expert on bond finance, and so I manage a lot of the resources. But before I make a statement like that, I want to see what the terms and conditions and yields are going to be, because that debt service that you may pay may not be worth the cost of what you're servicing. So I think that's a critical piece of the conversation. So Jim Boynes is going to be talking about that. I'm going to look extra careful at that if this measure does pass. So thank you.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we are out of time for questions. I did get a whole stack of questions here, as you can see.
if the candidates would be amenable, it has been suggested that I could email out the questions to all the candidates. If you are interested in providing answers, you are welcome to. And then we will post those answers in a public document that will be then emailed out to our email list. If you're not on our email list and you would like to be, please send me an email. It's mej@may-valley.org. We're ready for our closing statements, and as I said, we're going to start down here at the end with Mr. Rose.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, I just love this crowd because you guys are great. When you see this lady like this at 93 years old, who supports me and I support her, this lady here who's 91 years old, same thing. This is what I've been doing. Transparency, that's all. You've heard all these people change where they're going to spend your money when you ask for them to do for the roads, and that money is going to spend where they want to be spent where they want to spend it. Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't changed. I'm the same Corky Bouze, 30 years, the guy who stands up and speaks up for you. I'm not going to quit speaking up for you. And if I don't get elected, I'll be on the other side of the council like I was 38 years ago. But the one thing I am going to do, as I said, I'm going to make sure I watch my community, and I'm going to make sure your voice is heard. You can catch me at Casper's. You can catch me at City Hall. You have my cell phone number. I'm not a politician that's trying to go to the parties and look good. I'm just a politician that's trying to make sure that your quality of life stays the same or gets better. I hope it gets better in my own. Thank you very much for having me out tonight. I love each and every one of you. Thank you.
Well, you guys heard me repeat so many times, right? I pride myself on being able to think critically, and I think that's extremely important. One of the reasons why I decided to run, again, I come from the Iron Triangle. I know my responsibility as a council member is to represent the entire city of Richmond. But one of the reasons why I decided to run is to demystify this process for a lot of young people of color who aren't civically engaged, who aren't involved in the community. And I think that's one of the reasons, that's one of the efforts that I would put forth so that we can curb crime. It's often those young people who don't have a sense of stakeholdership in their community, who go out and vandalize and commit crimes. And so that's one of the things that I hope to bring to the table. Also, again, I'm a lifelong Richmond resident, and I want to encourage you to be leery of an individual, of those who are the jack of all trades but the master of none. And so I hope that I can get your vote come November 4th. I think that the council in Richmond deserves a critical thinker, and I believe that Richmond should be adequately represented. And I am the first candidate since 1972, I believe, to come out of the Richmond Iron Triangle. So thank you so much.
I'm running on my record. My record is of somebody who's not part of the factions, I'm not part of Team RPA, not part of Team Chevron. Independent people like West Many Times, Rosemary Corbin, Eleanor Lloyd, who's here tonight, are endorsing me because I get things done, I work with my colleagues, I don't get into the politicking and fighting and going back and forth with craziness at the council meetings. That's things like getting more money into the popular repair budget, which I've done. Unfortunately, we had to cut it out. We can bring it back with Measure U, getting more police in the streets, and being out in the neighborhoods, working with folks on the individual issues. When I was elected county supervisor, first thing I did is I formed the El Sabani Municipal Advisory Council. So we have an opportunity to keep our progress moving forward, and I've been part of that progress, and I want to thank you, because whoever else is buying into the Chevron hit pieces, it's not going to be you folks that come out and listen to us for 2 hours, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm not necessarily establishment or anti-establishment. I'm not so partisan, and I'm not willing to hear from someone who differs from me, even on the majority of issues. I was born and raised in this city. I'm about collaborative efforts. I want to do a new thing and a big thing. I've heard some say that Richmond is better. Not better than when I grew up. And Hilltop was downtown. And I walked all over the whole city. I want to represent you in City Hall. If I'm in City Hall, you will be in City Hall. I'm a people person. Google Pastor Henry Washington, Richmond, California. Go to my website, henrywashington.us, and you'll see it for yourself. I am Richmond. and I'm about people.
Thank you again, May Valley, for having us out, and I appreciate everything. I look forward to being a shining light for Richmond. Someone who sees the future, the vision of Richmond, the old Richmond and the new Richmond. There's an opportunity for all of us to show the world that you believe in your community, that you believe in what is good and right for everyone, not just what's good and right for a council or a body of people, but for the whole community. You want art, you want services, get a person that has vision for that before you have to ask for it. Your streets, I ride over your streets, and I know where the potholes are. I feel them all the time, and I understand that. And so I have the vision and the purpose and the opportunity to work for you. If you vote for me, your vote will be counted. I use my vote like it's money, and I spend it wisely. So I encourage you to do the same thing. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all, and thank you for your time. I want to do this a little bit different. I do want to state that I've been honored to serve on the Richmond City Council for the past 2 years, and I'm honored to be endorsed by the Democratic Party, the Contra Costa Times, Congressman George Miller, and a whole range of other folks. But I actually want to talk less about myself and about actually the last issue, because I think it's really critical that all of us get out and vote on the issue of Measure U and vote in favor of it. One thing that I don't know if you noticed, because a lot of rhetoric was going back and forth, is that all the incumbents up here actually did say that we want to spend the money on streets. We talked about some other things as well, but everybody said we want to spend the money on streets. And everybody said that we want to spend the money then on public safety and youth as the next levels down. So if you vote for Measure U, the money's going to go to streets. Now, this whole talking point about there's no sunset, that didn't come from anybody up here. That came from somebody who doesn't live in Richmond. That came from Dan Bornstein. And me and Corky's interview with him, he brought it up for the first time. Mr. Gouze ran with it, and now other folks are saying it. But if you're going to do the streets, you have to have a 30-year bond, and you can't have a sunset to make that work. So vote for Measure U.
You know that I'm Eduardo Martinez, and I'm running for the 4-year Richmond City Council seat. And you'll probably be surprised to hear me say that I am not independent. I represent you. I represent the 99%. I represent the people of Richmond. That is my faction. My faction are the unions that represent us. My faction are all the different organizations, the community groups that are doing service in the city of Richmond. And I would like to remind you that Saturday at Parchester Village, 7:30 in the morning, you can join me to plant trees. So I hope to see you there. And then later on in North Richmond at the park, they are having the 5th annual Green Festival, and I hope to see you there also. That's how we do it.
I want to thank all of you for coming and I want to thank all the candidates for showing up and being a part of the conversation and discussion. I think it's critical that we all let you know we do care and we do feel that it's important. I've served even before I was a school board member. I was on the Richmond Planning Commission for 2 years from 1991 through 92, and I did a lot of work out here in Mayville. And I believe that in my term on the school district, school board, I've done what I've been asked to do. You have a new facility there at D'Angelo. Nobody ever thought we would care about D'Angelo. You have a principal that's thriving and making it an exciting place. All your elementary schools are out here doing well. We kept them open. We worked hard. I know you. I know this community. I'm out here all the time. One of my best friends, Steve Harvey, lived right here on Morningside. And so I worked on his campaign in 1999. So May Valley has always been important to me, and I hope you will vote for me on election day. You've been there for me before. I hope you'll continue to support me. I got the district out of bankruptcy. We're on a good foot. I can do the same if you put me on the city council. Thank you for your time tonight. And have a good day.
Thank you once again for May Valley for sharing this beautiful, wonderful forum, and to my colleagues for putting forth their effort. And certainly it's going to be a decision for you to make on November the 4th. We have some wonderful candidates here that want to make a difference, but who can make a difference? That's what we need to look at, the leadership. Who can make a difference? Who can carry us there? Who can petition for us? Who can be the champion? And I've done that in everything I've done ever since I got out of high school. As a police officer, as a postmaster, as a as chairman of the police commission, as currently a Richmond Police Department chaplain, as the president of the chaplaincy program. So my life has been served. I serve you. I'm an elder in a church on the south side for 34 years. Serving people, just like you. I can make a difference. So if I can, you can. November 4th, I'll work.
So thank you all so very much for coming today, listening. I consider myself a politician. I consider myself an activist who ran for city council to improve the quality of life of Richmond residents and the children that I work with. That's why. I don't get money under the table. Because I don't take corporate money. I'm not doing this for fame. I'm doing this simply because I care about this community. I don't have to take the abuse that I get, but I do it for the love of Richmond. I live here now, I'm going to live here, and I know I want it to be the kind of community that we all know that it can be. I'm endorsed by all the different organizations that are fighting for working people. California Nurses Association, SEIU, Local 1, ASME, the Sierra Club. So you know I'm going to be defending you when it comes to developers who want to come in here and do what they want to do. So I don't take developer money either. So once again, you can trust me, you can know that I will be here defending. JavankaBeckles.net for more information. Thank you.
When I was on the city council from 92 to 2000, one of my projects that I worked on for about 5 years was the Rosie the Riveter Memorial, and then I worked very hard to have it become a national park. And then when I left, I turned it over to the council. I don't take credit for the construction, but I do take credit for working really hard to get that thing going, and it's been a wonderful asset to the city. It's something the city has to be proud of. I also worked after the General Chemical spill in 1994, probably 6 years, on the community warning system, those hideous, nasty, loud sirens you hear the first of every month. It's a very complicated system other than the sirens, of course, but in the event of a chemical release or some kind of problem in the city, you would be notified either by your television, your radio, or your cell phone. So I really would appreciate if you would support me and vote for me. Thank you.
So I want to thank you all for holding this candidates night. And I want to reiterate again that we've come too far. Richmond is truly better now. We have reversed our downward spiral. Those who think we have not reversed our downward spiral must be from another planet. If you watch the news, if you look around you, people in all our neighborhoods are clear Richmond is better now. Our crime in the 1990s, our homicide number was 61. Last year it was 16. This year, so far, it is only 12. Hopefully, we won't have more. We're going in the right direction. We're shedding our reputation as a high-crime city. We're improving quality of life. We're renovating our parks. And yes, we're holding Chevron accountable for the health and the safety of our community. I am proud to have been a part of Richmond's transformation. 8 years as your mayor, 10 years on the council, and I am deeply committed to continuing our transformation as your council member.
I just want to cover a couple of topics that got passed over. First of all, I have a paving schedule for streets in this area, and I'm going to pass it out, but you can look at it and make sure that it ends up with Eleanor Lawn. Second item, there's been a little bit of talk about jobs, economic development, business. When I first entered this race a little over 2 months ago, 4,300 jobs have been created in Richmond since the bottom of the recession in 2010. I checked the statistics today, it's 5,100. That's an increase of 800 jobs in 2 months. The unemployment rate dropped a whole % just in this last month alone. It's now half of what it was in 2010. Business, economic development, jobs are really taking off in Richmond. And contrary to what my colleague Mr. Bates said in a previous forum, he said we need a one-stop center in Richmond. Folks, we have a one-stop center in Richmond. If you want to see it, go down on the second floor of City Hall. Thanks.
Well, you've heard that Richmond is doing well. Let me give you a little bit of what they mean by doing well. We have over 10.5% unemployment, over 35% unemployment among our youth. Our mall is in bankruptcy. Following me? Our mall is in bankruptcy. We have lost over 50% of businesses in that mall. We're doing well. We're doing well. But ask yourself, who's doing well? Tom is doing well. He's very wealthy. He's among the 1%. He's doing really well. Nat is doing well too. He's among the 1%. But the bottom line is, we have our young people that are struggling here. We have families that are struggling. What are they doing? What am I proposing? I want to expand our port in Richmond here, expand it to a more global port. I want to start work with the school board here to open a technical high school. Those are real concrete solutions, and you can read more about my proposals in my handout. Thank you.
Let me first express my appreciation to many of you who have supported me during the 35 years that I've been in office. In spite of the FBI coming in 1999 with Mr. Butts and systems, you stood with me and you supported me. And I've been reelected continuously. This campaign for mayor is about leadership. If you want to see leadership, look at Mr. Butt, how he gets up in the face of the mayor and yells and screams at her. We're going to have another dysfunctional council. It's about leadership, it's about respect, it's about integrity, but most important, it's about compassion. Anytime Mr. Butt takes a stance that the people in the hacienda, they think they're in a hotel and deserve maid service, disrespecting the large segment of the individuals that are less fortunate than you and I, that is not compassion. You need someone at the city hall, as a mayor, to be a positive leadership. You have never seen me, 35 years, get up and act like Mr. Butts is shaking his finger in the mayor's face. I work with everybody, including him. NatBatesForMayor.com. Please look at that website. You understand where I'm coming from. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. I just want to leave you with a final thought. You know, our job on the May Valley Neighborhood Council is not just to give you a voice, but it's to create lines of communication between you and city government. And this is all the mail received by one member of our board. And this tells you precisely nothing about who these people really are. Every one of these people up here has a history, they've got a family, they've got things that they believe in, and you're never going to know who they are unless you get face to face and talk to them. Listen to what they've said, listen to what they haven't said, listen to how they responded to each other and to you all, and make an educated, informed decision based on who they are, not what anybody else has to say about them. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you all.